on my team who owns these applications. I want to join the enterprise release that's coming up this weekend, which is what you saw me just create. So I will say join release. The list that gets populated here is actually just any releases that are coming up in the future. So this is the only one. And the versions are going to be what I've defined in my QA environment. So it assumes that these, if they're in QA and they're showing positive test results, then they must be ready to go to production. So, or most likely the next versions to go to production. And I'll hit save. All right, I'm now ready to run my deployment to my production environment through my enterprise release. And we will jump over to the enterprise release, JKE schedule. And now in order to run the actual release, we just start with the main release process, which I've created, and hit the play button on the first step. So I noticed the first step is just to create a production ticket in ServiceNow. It succeeded, so I'll go over to ServiceNow and go back, and what we're looking at here are my changes in ServiceNow, and we have a new state ticket right here which was just created, and it's got some fields filled in which came from UrbanCode Velocity based on what I've input for that step. So if I jump back to that, I can actually jump in here and break it down. I can see the connection I'm making to ServiceNow, and I can see the properties that I've passed to it. The next step is just a release manager approval, which is an UrbanCode Velocity approval. This sent an email to any users with approval privileges on this task, or you can approve that from the email, or you can approve it from the UI, which I'm doing in this case as admin. And now the next step is actually going back to the ServiceNow ticket which was created and checking to see if that was approved. So as long as it's not approved, it's going to say in progress, and since I have administrator privileges on both systems, I'm going to jump in here and go ahead and approve that now. All right, my ServiceNow ticket was now approved in ServiceNow and it's scheduled. So if I go back to UrbanCode Velocity. All right, now that my ServiceNow ticket has registered as being approved, we see the complete here, and we're on to our roll call step, which is just before our automated deployment begins. So make sure everyone's ready and on deck to deploy to our production systems and move on to the next step. Following that, we move our ServiceNow ticket to an implemented state. If we jump back over here to ServiceNow, we can refresh the page and see that it should be implemented. There it is. Bring back to Velocity. We are now executing our JKE prod plan, and this is when we joined that release back on the pipeline page from my team. This is the template which was joined to our release, so it's going to go ahead and go through that. If I break down into here, I can see it starts with a QA approval. So with my all-encompassing permissions, I'll approve that, and it'll move on to the actual deployment of my applications. So finally, we've reached the UrbanCode deploy application process and the Jenkins job, which are actually deploying the versions of my applications to my production systems. The Jenkins job completed immediately. The UrbanCode deploy, and you can see that the deployment task has started. And we're now doing that very granular level of deployment that UrbanCode deploy is so good at. Once that completes, we should see some green here and be able to move on to the next step. All right, the deployment to UrbanCode deploy and Jenkins completed. So within my prod execution, we want to run a smoke test. This is just a manual task for now, symbolizing what smoke test might actually look like, and a go live notification. Typically this would be an email task, so I've just made it a manual task for now so that we can see success. And now my production execution for my JKE pipeline is complete. If I go back to my releases tab, I should see my January JKE Enterprise as 100% completed. There it is, 13 successful tasks, 0 skipped, 0 in progress, and we get a little bit of metrics on that. We're a little bit early as based on the dates I selected, so we're looking pretty good. And if I go to my JKE pipeline, which was what I added to that release, we can see that we have updated our inventory. The latest version